It is my distinct honor to welcome to the stage this afternoon the one and only NEA Director, Executive Director, Ms. Kim Anderson. Please give her a warm round of applause. Thank you so much for being here.
Mahalo. Thank you so much. I was telling Wilbert and Kyoki backstage how humbled I always am when I'm around our members, because you're amazing. You're beautiful, you're powerful, and you are filled with seemingly limitless love for students and for each other and for this union. So thank you, Osa and Logan and Lisa and Wilbert and Andrea and Aaron in the back, who I have the fortune of seeing multiple times a year. Thank you for extending such a warm invitation. Special hello to one of the first NEA Board of Director members I worked with as a young, wee little lobbyist, is Carolyn Mossman in the back. And Louise, where are you, Louise Cayetano? Yeah! We get very close to our NEA directors because your NEA board at the national level, almost 200 strong, is our principal lobby team. I heard a lot today about your lobby team here and the successes of that. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second, but it is an auspicious and formidable group. And so it's my honor to be able to have worked with several of your directors over the years. It is also a great honor to be in the presence of Wilbert for 31 years of incredible, dedicated service to this union. What an example of servant leadership for the benefit of our students, the educators who serve them, our communities, and our union. You know, one of the hallmarks of his leadership that I wish could be replicated in every single state affiliate across this beloved union of ours is the investment and ownership over professional practice and professional excellence that is one of the hallmarks of HSTA. That would not have happened without your leadership and the leadership teams with whom you've worked over 3 decades, Wilbert. So thank you very, very much. So my goodness, also talked a lot about, those headlines were really instructive about the last 2 years. And in fact, March 11th, 2 years ago, was when the World Health Organization announced COVID-19 as a worldwide pandemic. And since then, we've certainly watched the pandemic ravage families and family businesses, communities, our schools. Students have lost parents and educators and family members. And we know that this pandemic fell disproportionately on families who have the least, on students who have the least. Students in poverty, students of color, all across these United States of America, in the continental United States and here in Hawaii, as well as Alaska. But you never stopped. Our members never, ever stopped, from teachers taking homework packets and teaching literally through glass windows sometimes in front of students' homes, to food service workers who kept showing up to prepare meals for students, not just students, but their entire families, because those would be the only meals those families would see. Literally saving people's lives. Bus drivers driving hotspots to kids who didn't have access to the internet. Our school nurses calling hundreds and hundreds of families to check on the social emotional health of our students. So your siblings across the country, across all job categories, we're doing this just as you were as teachers, braving the pandemic, putting often your health at risk, putting the lives and the health and the well-being of your students above all else. And so for that, I salute you, I thank you, and I am humbled to be among you. You know, schools across the nation, as we began to reopen, as you well know, are suffering from massive shortages. The bills that Osa talked about, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud. Oh my God. The bills that are pending not only in the Hawaii legislature, but across the country, our affiliates are demanding justice. They're demanding justice for educators, for students, for families, for communities. These shortages didn't just arrive, right? We've known all along. Educator shortages, particularly teacher shortages, predate COVID. But stop and think of this figure. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, America's public schools have nearly 600,000 fewer educators in them today than 2 years ago. 600,000 fewer than just 2 years ago. Colleagues who have moved on, for whom it was just too much. Colleagues who were ready to retire, and deservedly so. Colleagues who passed away. Colleagues who could unfortunately find better compensation elsewhere. The struggle to improve professional compensation is one that has predated COVID and will go on, and hopefully we will, once and for all, solve the professional pay problem here in Hawaii as well as across the United States, because it's long overdue. Now, these shortages and the conditions that we face are all up against a national backdrop, some of which was mentioned earlier by Osa. The fault lines of our civic debate are marked by the desire to pursue economic prosperity for all of us versus those who promote cultural divisions among some of us, right? We've seen that. We've seen wedge driving and race baiting and divisive debates that appeal to our base instincts as human beings. It appeals to the worst among us, right? The worst of our character. But still, we persevere, we raise our voice, we lead with love, we lead with our values. Also, the national backdrop, economic insecurity, the war in Ukraine and the pandemic, that combination of the two causing supply chain issues that I know you have dealt with here, your colleagues in the continental United States deal with as well. We can't even get enough paper for the NEA Today magazine, for God's sakes. I mean, seriously, and much worse. And that economic uncertainty makes our job as advocates even harder, right? That hill that we climb to talk to public officials about whether or not they're going to fund our schools and fund student supports and fund educator compensation adequately makes it all that much harder when there's this level of economic uncertainty. Couple that with gross income inequality. I was shocked when I was doing a little reading, and Mel's helped me understand this a bit more. The average home price here in Hawaii is $700,000. Who in the hell can afford that? Right. There's something fundamentally wrong. There's something fundamentally wrong with a society in which the most noble profession among us, the most noble profession, the profession that creates the future, that educates the future, upon which our democracy rests, upon which our economy rests, upon which our culturally vibrant and inclusive society rests, can't even afford to buy a house. There's something fundamentally wrong with that picture. And the only people that can bend the arc of that injustice toward justice is this union and the beloved national to whom you belong, together with our labor colleagues, together with parents, together with other allies who share our values. The structural elements of our democracy There's another aspect of this backdrop that are troublesome. For those of you who know and reach out to and are in relationship to some of your siblings in the continental United States, you will hear them talk about, and I'm sure you've read about, gerrymandering, voter suppression, the attempt now in Wisconsin, believe it or not, to jail election administration officials on a bipartisan basis, by the way, not by party, just some crazy prosecutor authorized by the jerk governor. I'll try and be, notwithstanding Wilbert's admonition about cussing, I will try to be relatively PG. But these people make me mad. They make us all mad because they're robbing our fundamental opportunity to exercise our voice. Our vote is our voice in a democracy. And when people threaten that, they threaten the very thing that we practice here in our union, right? We practice democracy. This is an example of democracy. Similarly, the environment that you create in your classrooms and in your offices, your lecture halls, that is democracy as well. A free society, a representative democracy, cannot survive without a public education system. It cannot survive because an informed citizenry is a prerequisite to those who are willing and able to raise their voice to shape the policy that impacts our lives. You all know that. That's why I'm incredibly proud that this coming week, I hope, we will see in the United States Senate the confirmation of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. What an amazingly historic moment for the country, for a daughter of public school teachers, for all little girls who happen to look like me. What an amazing example of leadership. And our democracy can produce that result when it works, right? It's not all bad news. So here's the other thing. I know you know this, but I'm going to say it several times. Elections matter. Elections matter. Were it not for President Joe Biden and the NEA big family, the big NEA, our advocacy, we would never have seen the single largest investment in public education in this country's history with the American Rescue Plan, $170 billion. The NEA board helped produce that, but wouldn't have happened without President Joe Biden's leadership. Would not have happened. We staved off massive amounts of layoffs that would have increased class sizes. We think class sizes are big now. Imagine what would have happened were it not for that American Rescue Plan. 500 million shots in arms. Guess what? Your president, Becky Pringle, banged on people in this administration at the beginning of the pandemic. And guess what? Educators were prioritized for the vaccine. We saved our members' lives with that advocacy. Saved our members' lives. Public service loan forgiveness. How many people have student loan debt? How many people have checked out the website and gone on Savvy and NEA member benefits? How many people have called us up and asked for Office of General Counsel's help? We have several members of the NEA family for whom their student loan debt forgiveness is in six figures. I just heard of another story today of somebody who had $280,000 of debt forgiven because of the efforts of our Office of General Counsel, direct to the Department of Education. Again, elections matter. That program that was run amok under Betsy DeVos, fixed now because of our demand to fix it and President Biden's Secretary of Education Cardona, who said, you know what, you're right, let's fix it. We have thousands and thousands of members who've had millions of dollars of debt forgiven. This is life-changing, life-changing. People can buy homes, people can avoid losing homes that have been in families for generations. This is big stuff. Elections matter. The bipartisan infrastructure bill, again, government working for once. A bipartisan bill to start rebuilding the nation's infrastructure and put our colleagues in other labor unions back to work in union jobs so they can raise their families and retire with dignity. The other thing we have going for us, public sentiment about unions is at an all-time high, at least as high as it was back in the 20s and 30s. That's a really, really big deal. How long have we been taking it on the chin, right, writ large, from the corporate right and those who disparage the role of unions in our society and in our country? Well, not anymore, because the American people have figured it out. They've figured it out. We are the last ones that stand between an unfettered access of corporate America to the halls of government in ways that line their pockets and not working people's. That's why they're trying to take us out. That's their recipe. You all know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But what exists here is somewhat of an anomaly, Osa. As much as hard as you've had to fight, and as proud as I am of you that you're, hopefully, fingers crossed, keep calling those legislators, about to see huge success legislatively, your siblings in other states are way behind through no fault of their own. It is by design. These folks are trying to tear us apart, right? And try to sow chaos within our family and outside our family. Another thing we have going for us, we have members everywhere. We're the largest labor union in the United States. We have members in every single congressional district in America. No other organization boasts that. Zero. And the last time I checked our research, and Aaron, you'll be very proud to hear this, because I know Mary Kusler always says this. For the folks who do research of those lobbying Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and they look at tens, even hundreds of organizations, we are in the top 10 of all organizations that hit the Hill in Washington, D.C. to lobby. Just think about that. Think about, across all issues, across all industries, we're in the top 10, and that's because of you. It's because of members. We have a member-driven advocacy program. It is our numbers and our voice that gets raised that produce these kinds of results. It's our advocacy and it's our electoral prowess to elect people who we can work with and partner with. So, what's at stake? All of these conditions, all of these systems that impact us and our students, families, and communities are shaped by those who hold elected office. School funding, privatization, supports for students, working conditions, family and medical leave, job security, affordable housing, affordable health insurance, college affordability, food insecurity, all of those issues are at stake. All of them. 36 governors up for election. You all know that. We were out there waving signs, weren't we? 34 United States senators. God help us if we lose the United States Senate. Right? The federal judiciary has been completely reshaped, and we've got to add some balance, because we know elections matter. There are 88 state legislative chambers up in 46 states. You know, I don't know how many of you were in this room or in a similar room after the election cycle of 2010, where we just, pro-public education, pro-labor officials just were wiped out. We lost nearly 1,000 state legislative seats across the country, and we've been trying to climb out ever since. And that's without regard to party, I might add. There are, although diminishing, there are still some moderate Republicans with whom we can work in other states. Brad Little in Idaho, for example. IEA taking a bold stand in the primary to stand behind their moderate Republican governor. Now, they're enjoying the biggest increase in educator compensation they've ever had, greatest increase in public education spending they've ever seen, right? So we have to exercise our voice and our advocacy and our collective action, regardless of party, but always grounded in our values and our mission, always grounded in the images of the students' faces that you wake up seeing every morning. We got to get to work. And for your siblings across the United States and the continental United States, certainly, I know you've been seeing these horrific stories about school board races. You're a little bit different here in Hawaii, but school board meetings in which very angry, almost violent, well, in some cases violent, protests occurring. I never thought I'd see the day, Wilbert, when I'd have to contract with personal security firms as an exec to protect the personal security of some of our leaders in states. It's that serious, and it's that surreal, right? But we can, in fact, overcome all of those obstacles, and we continue to do so because of you, because you make choices. You make choices. The elections that we will face in 2022 ultimately end up becoming a choice about whether we elect public officials who want to ban books instead of buy them. They are about whether or not we elect people who favor democracy over autocracy. They are about whether or not we elect people who want to drive more people into the most noble profession on the face of the planet or drive them out. This election is about whether or not we elect people who still want to give tax breaks to the wealthiest among us instead of rebuilding Main Street and helping working families across this country. So, here is my charge to all of you. I call this my lesson plan for union citizenship. The first choice that I need you to make is one that you've already made, and that's to join. Join the union. But don't do just that. Join and welcome. Welcome others into this family. This union, and I really believe this union is the greatest champion of public education this country has ever known. Ever. Think about that. It is the greatest champion of public education as an institution. Welcome others to be a part of this incredible family. Welcome them. Act number 2, participate in not only your union's programs for yourself, to make yourself a better practitioner, a better leader, etc., but participate, just as you are today, in the union's elections, whether they be internal or external. Don't ever miss one. Don't miss one. Don't miss one, and inspire others to do the same. Number 3, give to PAC. We all know that it takes money to win elections. It takes money to get a message out, notwithstanding Keoki and the brilliant communications team that you've built here, Wilbert, who get a ton of press for free. It does take money, right? So you think about, how much is one coffee at Starbucks? I don't know, $4, right? $5 at Starbucks? Well, maybe here it's different. I don't know. It's like maybe 10. I don't know. Could you go without just one Starbucks, you think, to make sure that not only you and your colleagues here in Hawaii, but your siblings across the country are treated better by the elected officials who preside over the systems that impact us? Could you go without just one? I think so, right? I think so. Making that choice is incredibly important because it gives us the opportunity to engage in bending that moral arc toward justice through our election activity and through our advocacy and through our collective action as a union. So that was number 3. And number 4, organize. Organize, 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 because what happens when we organize? We win. What happens when we organize? What happens when we organize? What happens when we organize? Amen, amen. 4 decades ago, Dr. King wrote in his letter from Birmingham jail, "Human progress never rolls in on the wheels of inevitability." It doesn't just happen. It takes the tireless efforts of those who demand it. We must demand justice for our students, for the education professions, for public education, for our communities, for our democracy, and for the world. The eyes of the world are upon us, HSTA. The eyes of the world are upon us. We must rise to this challenge. We must rise like the beautiful, beloved union that we are. We must organize, 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 because we know that we must fulfill the promise of public education for every single beloved student, every single one, every single one, every single one. And that starts today. Thank you so much. Mahalo.